To discuss emerging international markets, we have a crack team, and the panel will be moderated by the president and CEO of Hello Cannabis. Let's welcome Stephen Verbeek.
Hey everybody. As Engao stated, my bad. We were actually close friends. I'm sorry, buddy. My name's Stephen Verbeek. I'm from Canada. I founded a company called Hello Cannabis back about 8 years ago. We started in tissue culture and genetics, merged with a different LP, and concurrently I was working as a medical clinic. We branched off into recreational. We opened up the very first recreational store in the G20 nation. And just for my own credibility, I'll say that there's very few people in the world that can say that they have sold over $50 million worth of legal cannabis, and I'm one of them. That is a claim to not fame, but a claim to a reality that we are actually people that do it. And this is why I believe that this is one of the most important panels here, because we are seeing everybody talking about concepts and ideas on how to bring out legalization. We have been a part of this. I'm one of the co-authors and contributors for the Cannabis Act in Canada, and the very first continuing medical education course, where there were 6 co-authors for it, myself being one of them. So doctors can literally earn credits in Canada for medical cannabis, and I'm one of the contributing authors for this. So myself and every single person on this panel, I know them all very personally as well for many years, we are people that are actually doing it. And we have seen this from concept, where we're going back over a decade. I'm part of the legacy market. So we have seen this from black market, legacy market, all the way to a gray market, to a legal market, and battled everything, including the governments, including the doctors, and all of the problems and gaps that I have been hearing all across the world. I've now spoken in, I believe, 16 different countries. They are all identical. And I'm telling you that every single person in this panel is somebody that has lived through this and is still doing it right now to this day, and are resources that can help. We are here to be able to help countries that are legalizing. We have been through this already, and we are sources of people, we are resources that are actually doing it. And this is something that unfortunately is not happening in many areas. It is still just talk, it is still just conversations, and you even saw the largest market, which is Germany, is still talk. They're still figuring it out, right? And I've been speaking in Berlin for 7 years now, where it was still raw, legal. 7 years later, we're still figuring it out. So we are people that have figured it out in countries that have figured it out, and we've battled, and we are still battling a wild industry to this day. So that is my story, and I urge you to listen to these people. They each have a different specialty, and they are close friends and colleagues that I collaborate with around the world. And we are truly here to help people. We get more joy out of being able to contribute and collaborate with different countries. And of course, self-fulfilling prophecy here as well. We also have careers, and we like getting paid, but we bring value. That is the point here. We're not just taking shareholders' money. We are revenue-generating companies, and our goal is to be able to help you generate revenue and not just be fluff and talk and burning money every single day, which is what the vast majority of this entire industry is. So this panel is different, I assure you. Without further ado, this is my very close friend, Doctor. This is JC. Please come. And next, we have Carm. Carm is a wonderful lady who is part of New Zealand. She is the only legal producer in New Zealand and ready and able to export. So are we in Canada, but we will share. It is fine. And this gentleman I've known for many years, this is Kai. He is a legal expert in cannabis, practicing in Germany, and represents many different cannabis companies, specifically in Germany. And another close friend of mine, Nima, we met in Zurich many years ago, and in fact, actually one of his business partners is from my hometown in Canada as well. And this gentleman is part of the pilot project in Switzerland, where he is one of the only people that is able to produce and sell cannabis and cannabis extracts to the pilot project. So again, we are people doing it. We are active, we are revenue generating, we are real companies, real people, operating real things. And I think I've said the word real enough, but I want to reinforce that it's real. Last time I'll say that. So the focus of this panel is, well, tell you what, I spoke very broadly about each of you. Would you like to elaborate further about what you do individually, and then we will have a roundtable discussion. And I do believe that an open forum here, because we are resources, please ask us questions and get our contacts. We love doing this. Please tell us more about yourself.
So hi guys, I'm Jean. I'm from Malta, and in Malta I'm a licensed physician and prescriber, and I support doctors with two things: educating doctors to become prescribers and better prescribers, supporting them with tech, medical tech, data tech, which is supporting doctors in all areas of medicine, but especially cannabis medicine and innovative fields. Malta has had medical cannabis now for 5 years. And since then, it's been a lot of battles, a lot of work. Some things have worked, some things haven't. And the best part about being here and speaking to you is to see the enthusiasm and to help that enthusiasm and make it to the other side with success. And hopefully avoiding some of the pitfalls and some of the bullets that we've had to take in our own respective countries and lessons we've learned.
We have lots of bullets in us. It's not an easy industry, I can promise that. So when you find anybody that has been in this industry for longer than 5 years, it's a lifetime, right? We say dog years. Like, it's so cute when people say like, oh, I've been in the cannabis industry for a long time. It's like, how long? And they're like 2-3 years. And they're like, this industry's crazy. Like, how long have you? We're like 12. And yeah, I had hair before, by the way.
Kia ora, everyone. My name is Carmen Doran, and I think I get the prize for coming from the furthest away. So I'm here from New Zealand. Helios is a medicines company. We are New Zealand's largest producer of medicinal cannabis. As Stephen said, we're the only New Zealand-grown, New Zealand-made producer who is in market. We were the first to achieve our GMP license back in 2021. We've been in market for 2 years in New Zealand, catering for patients in New Zealand first. That was one of our real goals at Helios, was to look after our own patients first. As you heard, we're ramping up for export now. We're a vertically integrated company, so we have our own highly controlled indoor cultivation. We have our own extraction facility. We make our own finished products. We have our own GMP analytical testing labs and our own R&D space. We also have a number of collaborations across New Zealand with research and development partnerships into universities. And I think one of the things that I can probably share is a different perspective here on how medical can be done and done really well. It's not all perfect, that one I will definitely say, but one thing that we do see in New Zealand, which is a bit different to what I'm seeing in Europe, is really strong government support. So we have support and funding for our R&D programs. We have support and funding for our export plans, part of the reason that I'm here today, to be able to tell you all about what we're doing in New Zealand. And we also, as a small country, not quite as small as Slovenia, but just 5 million people, we're able to really interact and talk with our Ministry of Health, with our politicians and with our government departments. And I think that Slovenia could really learn and do that as well, with being able to have those conversations, just like the ones we're having here today.
Fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Kai Friedrich Niermann. I'm a lawyer from Germany. I'm a lawyer since 2003. And as Germany legalized medical cannabis in 2017, also the first CBD products came up, and no one really knew how to regulate them or how to treat them. And then I started a deep dive into these regulations. I started a blog, and this blog was read by Prohibition Partners. Prohibition Partners was read by MJ Bisdalia and was invited to the US, to Canada. And since 2019, I'm only representing and consulting medical cannabis import companies, CBD companies, hemp companies. And of course, we are preparing for recreational reform here in Germany. And I'm also the legal advisor of the European Industrial Hemp Association, the IHA. We are preparing 4 different applications for novel food products. And I'm advisory board member of the International Cannabis Bar Association, and a board member of Law Enforcement Against Prohibition Germany.
Okay. Give it up for Kai. If you want legal representation and any connectors in the cannabis industry, I urge you to find a good lawyer. I would not be sitting here today if I didn't have representation from a good lawyer. In fact, actually, Eric Foster was a partner at Denton's in Canada and was one of the people that actually helped train Peter, who is now head of the European cannabis area here. And if it was not for me meeting Eric Foster of Denton's and somehow, some way impressing him, which is baffling still because he's kind of a big deal, just like Kai, they make introductions and they pick their battles. There's a lot of cannabis clients that are out there all hunting, but a good lawyer is somebody that I urge you to cozy up with, and he's handsome too. That's my sales pitch for you, pal. Nima, it's all you, buddy.
Hi, everyone. First of all, I just want to say thank you for the warm welcome that I had here in Slovenia. Really nice country. It looks like Switzerland over here, so I feel like home. I've been a friend of the plant for 20 years. I've been in this business for 7 years. I have a law background, but not as many as he does. Started the first company with CBD with my brother, Swiss Hemcare. So we're a family-owned business. We started with 40,000 Swiss francs. Built it up, made millions of revenue, made a lot of money. Then went to medicinal cannabis, which is Charlie's Lab, my other company, a laboratory. Then we lost a lot of money. Then we applied for the Swiss pilot trials, which started this year. And we officially are allowed to sell THC from 1st of January 24. So I'm really excited about that.
So as I said, the resumes on this table are pretty significant. And I'd like to reiterate as well, Slovenia is like a second home to me. My first love in university was actually Slovenian, and I lived here for a couple months, and I'm for hire. I would love to be a part of this country officially. That's my sales pitch for myself. I'm not kidding. So let me know if I can help in cannabis in Slovenia, and I will come running very quickly. I love it here. Like, what the heck? Like, we're in a Disney movie right now, guys. So let's talk about some themes that I've noticed that were consistent here today, and I assure you they're consistent across the entire world. And one of them is on just focusing on the medical side. We find that there is a big roadblock with access to medical cannabis. And the first step is, of course, physician awareness. Physicians are a unique breed, and what I've noticed is that physicians are a unique breed across the entire world with very similar similarities. Good one. I'll work on my vocabulary too, sorry. Without physician education, it's lost. And like, Slovenia has had medical cannabis legal for what, 6 years? How many prescriptions are active here? Like, that's crazy, right? Like, I want to jump out the window hearing that. Like, that's crazy. And the reason that there's no prescriptions is because there's no physicians prescribing, right? But they could. So why are they not? Makes no sense. The reason is because there's lack of education, right? They're not Googling how it worked in Canada and reading when they have spent their how many years getting a license that could be in jeopardy by prescribing a narcotic. So the first step is destigmatizing it, right? I'm on cannabis right now. Like, I'm stoned. And I promise I could write a calculus exam. I'm not intoxicated. And my job is to destigmatize cannabis around the world. I've got an interesting personal story, but I'm a moderator and I won't take the sunshine here. But the physicians need to be educated. And they're a unique breed in order to educate them. You have to be face-to-face or be another physician. I find it is very difficult to be able to break through to physicians. So I'm saying all of these things to lead into a doctor that's sitting beside me. that specializes in tech and specializes in educating doctors and allowing them to be able to prescribe more effectively, allowing them to be able to titrate, to be able to find out what cannabinoid profiles work, what levels of THC, what levels of different elements of the plant, what levels of either combustion or non-combustion, what delivery mechanisms. He has developed tech that is very similar to the tech that we developed in Canada, but he is taking it to another level to make the prescribing process easier. And I believe that this is the forefront to be able to help Slovenia here, because there are no prescriptions. You've been legal for 6 years. So this gentleman is somebody that can provide the tools to be able to help educate physicians so that they can prescribe better, more effectively, more confidently, and it's coming from a physician. So reach out to this guy.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for that introduction. Yeah, in Malta, the experience of having 6 years now of medical cannabis, and the same metric is a problem, the number of physicians. And that metric affects the accessibility, because if there are not many physicians, it's difficult to get access. And when you think about accessibility and physician education, you get down to a barrier, and the problem is the barrier, and the solution is a bridge to that barrier. And first you need to look at the difference between legalization and normalization. So in 2018, when Malta legalized medical cannabis, there was a legal channel for doctors to write a prescription. And just like any other prescriptions, they have a legal access. But any prescription made by a doctor anywhere carries a weight. That weight is the warrant. This is why we allow doctors to prescribe substances for people to use in our mainstream societies. And when I educate doctors and I teach prescribers about how to go about adding cannabis to their arsenal, to the therapeutic arsenal, ultimately there are two things which arise. It's about the scientific and the educational part, let's say, and the liability. The liability of a doctor writing a medication, which can go really either way. Just like any other therapy, it's a risk-benefit analysis. And that risk-benefit is something that every doctor has in his mind before he makes the decision, I will prescribe this medicine. So that's what's really been lacking in many countries around the world. Legalization is only a half measure. The next measure is to get that into mainstream medical prescribing, mainstream medical doctors. And we have a lot of scientists. Earlier on today, we had some brilliant panelists and some brilliant speakers talking about the science of the endocannabinoid system. But medicine is an applied science. Someone needs to get those trials, those studies, and apply them into what we call in medicine clinical practice guidelines. Guidelines that the medical boards and the medical faculties across the world can agree that this is a standard of care in medicine. Why is this important? That leads me to the next point, liability. In malpractice, how do we decide whether a doctor was in the right or in the wrong? It's something we call a standard of care. And in any malpractice suite, you have a panel of peers, expert peers. So if we had to look at a pediatrician and explore a case, and you have to decide whether this pediatrician acted well or badly with any medicine, you're going to have a group of expert peers deciding whether that use of the medicine, that prescription, was up to the best standard of care possible. And this expert peer review, these groups are the doctors' associations that we know of, the GPs, the pediatricians, the geriatricians. And unfortunately, when we talk about cannabis, these people have been left out by the industry in general. And I think that is one of the biggest pain points that I would like to communicate here. We often look at the mavericks in this industry, the pioneering cannabis doctors who are doing it all, they're doing amazing work, but they're that doctor in that part of the country, that one guy. And that's not enough to support an industry. That will never be enough to support a medical industry, which needs mainstream support, and doctors need mainstream support, and we need to have a bridge connecting producers, connecting policymakers, legislators, to the doctors and to the patients, to the waiting rooms of clinicians who, they're not cannabis doctors and they never will be, but they have been approached. They're doctors. And they've been approached by an industry of cannabis medicine, innovative natural medicine, which more and more patients now are being very, very passionate about. Yes. So that is definitely an important point I'd like to communicate off the bat about how to go about starting physician education and building a framework for successful medical cannabis industry in any country.
Nailed it. And this is thank you. And I'll see if I can circle back so we can speak a little bit more about the technology that he's using. It's a fantastic platform, and it drives a lot of the data from our clinics as well. Like currently, Hello Cannabis has 7,000 patients that we have all individually prescribed, and they have purchased cannabis. This is not anecdotal evidence, like this is real. Like we literally save lives. My company, Hello Cannabis, is a suffix for goodbye opioids. I'm an opioid survivor from a tragic injury, in a wheelchair 6 months. I have not taken a painkiller or a pill for 11 years. And if I go to a pain clinic, they're giving me heroin. I still do it every single year. They will prescribe me heroin. I will be a junkie. I was a heroin addict by hour 4, taking enough medication to shoot up intravenously. I was taking it in a pill, but I was taking enough in a pill to shoot up 3 times every 4 hours, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 3 months. I get goosebumps still talking about it. I very rarely speak about it publicly. I was a fucking heroin addict. Flat out, I just wasn't using a needle. I quit cold turkey after 2 months, and I have flatlined twice. And once was because of withdrawal. So like this data works, it's real. And bridging this gap to these physicians is critically important. And if I can bridge into this, because this is exactly what Carmen and I were talking about out front, which I found very fascinating. Right now, there are no physicians prescribing here. And my job originally, my business partner is a doctor, and I own, as an entrepreneur, long story short, I was connected with a lot of different surgeons, and I managed money, so I knew rich people. Most of them are doctors and surgeons, and they saw my recovery. So I was able to bridge that gap of trust where they said, like, yo, this guy's a derivatives trader. Like, he's on the cover of an investment magazine. He is not a stoner. And little did they know that I was on cannabis managing their money every day, and I was damn good at my job. So I already had that trust. And then I had another physician to do it. So we started this medical clinic. And I urge anybody that is opening up a cannabis company here, you are going to be screwed if you do not have a clinic that you are working with or starting on your own that focuses on destigmatizing cannabis and educating physicians. So it's not just one. You get all of the different groups and pound it. I was knocking on doors every day. We have 78 physicians that refer patients to Hello Cannabis now. I have shook hands with literally every one of them. This is important. It's the only way to do it. You have to get in front of these people. And if you are going to become a cultivator, you need distribution. You need revenue. I'm a businessman, right? It's growing it. It's not like the field of dreams. If you build it, they will come. If you grow it, it will sell. Canada has sold 17% of everything we've grown. Name a commodity. Name any industry that can survive if you sell 17% of all of your production. Imagine if all of the coffee growers only sold 17% of the beans. You're bankrupt year one, right? Like, you need distribution. And right now the distribution is through medical channels. And in order to get that medical channel open, you need people like this, and this is free advice. You are going to be screwed if you do not have doctors that are prescribing, because you won't have patients, which means you won't have revenue. Which the only way you're going to survive is burning shareholders' money. That's it. And getting more money to burn. So it's very important. And this is something that Carm is doing over in New Zealand. And it's very special that they have a government that supports this. And she can speak with respect to how the medical program is working there and how they are able to prescribe and the pain points that they've faced.
Thank you. So in New Zealand, we have a medicinal cannabis scheme that's been in place since September 2021. It came into place on the 30th of September, and Helios launched our first product on the 4th of October, just 4 days later. One of the things that I wanted to share is that our medicinal cannabis scheme covers CBD and THC, so it covers all cannabinoids, and any doctor in New Zealand can prescribe for any condition. And I think that by having CBD under that prescribing law, I look at that in two ways compared to what I see here in Europe. In some cases, I think it's overkill, that you need a doctor to prescribe CBD. But in other cases, the rules are very clear, unlike here in Europe, where CBD is a medicine and it is prescribed by doctors. And that has actually been a route where doctors have been able to get to understand cannabis a little bit better by starting with prescribing CBD before moving on to prescribe maybe a balanced product, before moving on to thinking about THC. So it's been an easy route in for some of our GPs, but we've had to really focus on education. So Helios, even before the scheme came into place, we held medical conferences, MedCan. We had experts from around the world come. So Professor Mike Barnes from the UK, some of you may have heard of him. We had him come to New Zealand and do some education programs for us. We go to 2 doctors' conferences every year, and in October we're going to have a couple of events where doctors are coming along to Helios to see what we do. The reason I bring that up is that that is probably the biggest game changer we've seen around breaking down stigma, is actually having doctors and politicians come to our site and see how we make medicinal cannabis. Even the most skeptical, let's be polite, skeptical politicians, when they've come to Helios and they've come into our facility and we've dressed up all in our white gowns and our hairnets and our shoe covers, and we've gone into the cultivation facility, have changed their minds about cannabis and about that cannabis as a medicine. As we go into this facility, one of our politicians who was dead against cannabis said to me, "But Carmen, it's so clean."
Right?
I said, "Yes, we're making medicines."
Nailed it.
She said, "But yes, it's so clean." Yes.
We're making medicine.
We're making medicines. And so I think that in her mind, the view of cannabis as a medicine was very different. I think she thought we were growing in a shed with foil on the windows and, it was super dodgy. And so being able to come and see the precision, to look along the plants and see that every single one is the same height, to go into the extraction facility and have our extraction manager explain in detail how we pull out the cannabinoids from the plant and how we do that the same way every single time, has been a really big way that we've been able to break down some of the stigma for politicians or for doctors, and really understand that what we are making is a medicine. So that's one of the insights I wanted to share with this audience today.
Super. What I love about that story is in New Zealand, they were actually able to get the doctors to come to them. It wasn't so easy in Canada. But it's very true. The stigma right there, like they think about cannabis, the only thing that they've seen is on television when they're watching cops and they see somebody kicking open a door and in the basement or in like an attic with mold and foil and black tape covering everything. Like they think that that's how medicine is made. It's baffling when people walk into a real cultivation facility for the first time, particularly doctors, and precisely that. They're like, this is very clean. Like, yeah, you can eat off the floor. It's GMP. Like, what we make medicine, man. Like this is a surprise. Like, it's very, very, very surprising how their mind and the stigma, even after legalization in Canada, is still there years later until they actually see it with their first hand. Or until they actually hear a real success story from somebody that's eloquent, not just like, yeah, look, I'm in a lot of pain and like I just smoke weed and I feel better. Like they're not going to give any credibility to that. But if they're hearing it from another physician or they're seeing it from firsthand, it starts swaying, and it's still in Canada. We do tours all the time, and that shock and awe is still there with physicians being like, it's harmless, right? Like how the hell do you walk into a cultivation room and think like this kills people? There's literally 0 deaths because of this plant. Like 0. I've died twice because of like heroin. Cannabis is 0. Like this is real truth here. So I'd like to find a much easier bridge to a legal perspective in Germany, and it's eluding me right now. I've been pretty smooth with the transitions. But what I really think Kai should really talk about here is in Germany right now it's only medically. And recreation, as you heard Peter speaking earlier, it's still very much up in air. And we've been speaking in Berlin for 6-7 years now, where people thought it was like 6 months away from stores opening and people running in and buying weed and smoking on the streets. It's not the case. And Slovenia I highly recommend going through the medical platform first, and we can help avoid the pitfalls of transitioning from medical to recreational, because there's a need for both, absolutely. And I'd like Kai to be able to explain what he saw in the medical market in Germany, and hopefully he can be able to add some color and context on how this can benefit Slovenia and the Balkans in general and Europe in general, because I do believe that the medical market in Germany is set up not to fail, it's set up to succeed. It's just still very new, and the doors have not enough doors have been knocked on yet, so to speak. But I think the German medical market is actually better than Canada's. It's just not sophisticated, or I should not use that word with Germans, sorry. It's not fleshed out and efficient enough yet, just because it's still in more or less trial stage. Canada's been operating for a while, but if we had the rules like Germany, I think we would be able to help a lot more people and be able to grow and sell this product a lot more. The health and revenue is actually a synergetic thing. And that's coming from a businessman that's an opioid survivor that puts health first. And the money was a byproduct. And like I said, I was not kidding when I say my company has sold over $50 million worth of cannabis. And the whole ethos is health. Goodbye opioids, hello cannabis. So what did you see in the medical market in Germany? And how can they more or less learn from what Germany has done, because it's still slow?
Yeah, for sure. So we started 2014 with 1,000 patients. They had an exception and could obtain cannabis from the pharmacies. And then there was this one case where this patient grew his own cannabis on his balcony. Was prohibited, he got a criminal offense, and he fought this thing. And in the end, he, at the highest administrative court, he was admitted to grow his cannabis on the balcony. The German government obviously didn't like it, that all patients can grow their cannabis on their balcony, so they set up a whole new law, the Cannabis as Medicine Act. That came into force in 2017. So we started with 1,000 patients, and now we don't count the patients, that's the problem. We only count the prescriptions which are reimbursed from the public health insurances. But probably we have 250,000 patients right now. The market volume we don't have exact figures on that as well, because we have a lot of self-paying patients which don't reimburse, which don't apply for reimbursement at the health insurances. The market size is probably between 300 and 400 million, somewhere between that. So it's a tiny market. It's not a very big market, but still very fancy conditions here. That's the thing. We imported 25 tons of dried flowers last year. 10 tons were delivered to pharmacies. And you don't see any real growth increase in dried flowers for public health insurers anymore. So the future of the market definitely is the self-payer market, where people obtain cannabis from our prescriptions and don't even think about reimbursement or apply for that. That is the future of the market for sure. And maybe one or the only positive aspect about the new draft, which the Federal Health Ministry represented 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, is that cannabis is removed from the Narcotic Act. So it's not a narcotic anymore. It's a sui generis. It's a product. It's a commodity sui generis, you can say, even stricter regulated and controlled than before. But it's not a narcotic anymore. And that's the future. Maybe that helps for doctors as well, for education purposes. So it doesn't have the stigma of a narcotic anymore. But somewhere between an own commodity and a medicine, we have to figure that out exactly if science progresses, etc. And then, as you said it, if you prescribe a narcotic, the physician is obliged to do a risk-benefit analysis. How big is the risk that the patient gets addicted and that the situation gets even worse? And these analysis the physicians don't have to do that anymore. So they can prescribe it. And please pay attention on that. If you set up the medical regime, any indication is possible for cannabis. And it's shouldn't be restricted to, like in Portugal, to 7 indications, or like in the UK, where you can prescribe cannabis only for very few conditions. Make it open. Cannabis has the potential to help anyone. Yeah, the future definitely is in the self-payer market.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. So, I'll highlight a few key points in the German market. The reimbursement program is something that is astonishing. They have a very strong reimbursement program. In Canada, we have what's called OHIP. It's like insurance coverage. Cannabis is not only not included in this is the best part. We have what's called an excise stamp. It's like a sin tax. So things like cigarettes, they have a special wrapper with a special stamp where you have to pay an extra big tax because it's bad for you. Our cannabis medicine has an excise stamp on it. Medicine. That is still we are by far the most fleshed out and sophisticated of the G20 nations for cannabis. And we have been lobbying, and I've been sitting on boards and sitting on the Canadian Cannabis Council. I'm a member of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, like one of the lead cannabis advisors there. And if anybody has a story of who qualifies for medical cannabis and its real medical efficacy, it's me. And just with my own company, we have 7,000 patients, never mind the 500,000 others that are using this product. And we get taxed as a sin tax on it. It's nuts. Whereas in Germany, they are offering reimbursement for it. And I urge policymakers here in Slovenia to understand that this is a real medicine. It's irrefutable. The only reason that it's still like that in Canada is because of bureaucracy and the genie's out of the bottle. And they're very much enjoying the monetary tax benefits out of that excise stamp, right? Like, trust me, I watched Netflix miniseries of corruption, and I'd laugh saying that was fucking Tuesday morning for me. Like, it's dark. It's really, really, really dark. And we're very young, and the knowledge and experience that we've had weighs like a very, very, very heavy weight on us. And so I got to commend Germany for being able to follow this reimbursement program for real medicine that really works. There's no denying this. This is not anecdotal evidence. It's not anecdotal anymore. It's not me standing up 7 years ago saying, I am not mentally disabled. I'm a competent person that is on cannabis right now, and I am a sophisticated professional. Take my word for it. And that's how it started. This is now no longer anecdotal or me talking on a podium. This is irrefutable medical data. It's real. So it does require reimbursement. I am unfamiliar with the ins and outs of the medical program here in Slovenia. Is there reimbursement?
Yeah, it's
Super. Do that with cannabis too.
no, it's the same as in Germany.
Perfect. Now let's educate the physicians so we can help people and get them off of much worse narcotics and have them reimbursed for medicine that works. Please, let us help, because the combination of all of these experts here will ideally put together, in my opinion, a perfect system methodically. Doing it's a lot harder, but you get it. Speaking of somebody that's doing it, there's a transition of the day.
Nice.
Nima is one of the gentlemen that is doing it. And we've met around the world at different conferences. I'm telling you, this man has a brain that's not from planet Earth. And you're right, he's also humble, but he's a sharp one. And he specializes in extraction, he specializes in distribution, and clearly he's part of a major pilot program in a very sophisticated country such as Switzerland. And Nima, can you please explain how the medical program was originally working and now you are part of the recreational pilot program?
So the medical cannabis in Switzerland has been legal for many years. And since last year, it's become much easier for doctors to prescribe. Before, it was only for, if I recall,
I didn't do it.
hello. For 4 indications, basically, if you're just before dying, you can take cannabis. So that changed, which is also good. But also in Switzerland, there's a lack of education for doctors. I just went to a doctor, my doctor, wanting him to prescribe me medical cannabis, and he wanted to send me to a psychiatrist. So where will I get my cannabis? Not from them.
You see a theme here, right? Just to come full circle, this is the biggest theme.
That's why you said sophisticated country. I don't know. So the pilot trials are recreational. It's nothing to do with medicinal cannabis. Maybe to explain a bit about the trials. We have 26 cantons in Switzerland, and you can have a pilot project in one canton. You can have up to 5,000 participants in that pilot project. You have to be over 18, and you have to smoke cannabis or consume cannabis. So if you don't consume cannabis, you cannot take part in the trial. Yeah. The products range from hash, oil, vapes, flowers for now. Edibles will come as well. Maximum of 20% THC. Again, there, I don't know where that came from. So all the data we collect above 20%, we won't collect that. It's only up to 20% THC. They want also ratios like 20-10 with CBD, 1-1. So these are the varieties that are grown, and it was actually quite challenging to make a hash with 20%, but it's possible.
How is that possible?
Secret, but it's possible. To get these pilot projects, it's a long way. It's a lot of energy, a little bit of money. You need a research team. Ours is from the ETH from Zurich. And you need a topic. What are you researching? So the differences of, for example, differences of consumption cannabis in the city and in the not in the city, country. Thank you. So that's something that costs money, obviously. Then you have to, if you are producing with plants, you have to have a certification, which is normally GACP. You definitely need a track and trace system in place. That's very important for the government. And that's more or less for the production of the plant side. Then extracted is extracted. There's no law how you need to extract, or you can do it as you wish, basically. You just need to have that, so if you say you will extract 100 kilos at 18% THC, then you can calculate how much distillate you have, and you need to apply that, put that in your application, how many plants, how much you extract, how much distillate you have, etc. Then for the products which we specialize in Charlie's lab are vapes and oils. So the oils do not need any novel food or any approval. So THC is okay in oils, but not in CBD. Also, question mark. But I'm not complaining, just showing It makes no sense. You don't need a GMP in the lab, but you need traceability. That's very important. It took us 2 years to get this pilot project. I think every other country will legalize before Switzerland. We're just very, very slow. But I think we will get there. The legalization process is already started. There are just many entities that have to give their opinion, police, Ministry of Health, some consumer protecting associations, etc. But I'm sure we'll get there one day, and just stay positive and promote this plant. I think that's the right way to go. That would be my advice to you. Just stay positive and lobby. No, just kidding.
Lobbying does work to some degree, but it's not a fun process either. So I'm really grateful again to be in this lovely country. We are open for work here, me particularly. I'll reiterate that again.
Do you want to post your resume on
Yeah, to pro. I'm in.
We get it. Let's hear it again for the panel one more time. We have time for one question. Does anyone have one? Oh, right, here we go.
Hey guys, does this work? California breeder and plant tissue culture scientist here. So I've been in the trenches for 6 years, so know how it is. You really need to recognize the black market's presence worldwide when we're talking about this. Can you guys remark or comment on some of the regulatory for medical needing to be, or like the bureaucracy needing to be smooth enough that if someone has access to their plug, they're legal, and then the legal, why they're going to go to the medical, and what advantage does the medical bring? Why does it need to be cheaper, better? What are your comments on that?
Great question, and it's coming from a tissue culture and basically a seed junkie as well that's been traveling around. So respect on that. And Canada is very similar to California with the dichotomy between the illicit market and the legal market. I'd love to jump in and finish that, but please.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. When you look at the situation in Europe and the bureaucracy, and as the legal experts have told us, it's a lot about the conventions and a lot about, in Switzerland, we're seeing pilot projects, so scientific studies. Now, in business, we say, show me the money. In science, we say, show me the data. Does it work? And we've already discussed today that a lot of studies have been looking into how recreational cannabis or cannabis has caused harm, but we haven't really had funding in showing why, in a context where a patient can choose to keep getting the illicit market, why should they choose to go to the medical market, right? It needs to work. And we need to show data that it works, and that data is showing patients getting better. My opinion is this is where tech comes in, and this is where we need to have medtech to be able to show that our patients are getting better. This is why advocacy coming from the medical aspect is so strong. You don't want to believe me? Look at this patient. Speak to this patient. He'll tell you his life story. He'll tell you about his child who went to a pediatric doctor and used cannabis medicine. He'll tell you about his mother who used cannabis medicine with her geriatrician. And when we have that data, we'll be able to show and give motivation for why people should choose medical over illicit. Because we need, like you very well said, we need to remember that we're not in a vacuum here. The illicit market is still with us, and it still offers an option, and we need to be better than that and show for it.
So what he's reiterating is that the medical efficacy is real, and as people become more educated, the stigma of going to an illicit market or not, to speak from a business standpoint, because I know both sides, I've straddled them. Like I said, I'm a Dutch guy from Vancouver, like BC Bud, right? Like it was like, we basically supplied all of North America with cannabis until California kind of opened up, and then they became the American supplier. what will get people going to medical instead of the illicit market is a system like in Germany where there's reimbursement, free weed, right? That's good incentive, right? And the other, in Canada, we have tax write-offs for it. We have grants for medical devices, things like any non-combustion medical device. So the incentives there. And we can create we can actually now replicate the distribution, right? We're launching an online pharmacy for my 7,000 patients. Same day delivery. It's just like Amazon.com, except everything is weed. And it's shopping online, you buy it, it's with your credit card, and boom, the same day it's coming there. Like, find a plug that's gonna do that. I will crush them. And that's the whole point. You gotta be able to compete on price, compete on quality. And the fastest way to compete on price on the medical market is to have the government reimburse them. We don't have that privilege in Canada, so we have to beat them on ease of access, quality, and price.
Can I jump in here as well? One of the things that we discussed as a panel before we came up is that an adult use and a medical market can exist really well together. Absolutely. And that, from cannabis as a medicine perspective, we are giving cannabis as a medicine to someone who is sick, whether mentally or physically. In many cases, those people are immunocompromised. And so the consistency, being able to deliver something that is free of pesticides, free of heavy metals, that's the same strain every time, that has the same profile every time, but also that has that wraparound medical support, I think is really key. Price is always going to come into it, but for me, when we're talking about cannabis as a medicine, it's all of those things that are really, really important in someone who maybe is using cannabis medicinally, but not as part of a medicinal market. Just one other thing to share there is that in New Zealand, we're able to bring strains from the illicit market into the legal market. We have a route to be able to do that through our medicinal cannabis scheme and a declaration process where there are no questions asked around where the strain came from. And there's some really interesting strains coming from the black market where people as green fairies have been really focused on medical outcomes, and then now we're able to bring those into a medical setting, also with wraparound healthcare support from their doctor, from their pharmacy, for someone who really needs that help.
And you're talking to a tissue culture specialist and myself, so.
That was fantastic. Let's hear it again for the whole panel again. Unfortunately, we are out of time. I know it was very interesting, but I'm sure everyone can continue their conversations in the salon and the hallway and everything. This has been the International Cannabis Business Conference Slovenia Science and Technology Forum. We'd like to thank the good people of Bled and the good people of Slovenia for coming up. We'd also, thank you. I'd like to thank all our panelists, all the translators, all the audiovisual people, everyone here. The hotel weekly balance is great. Don't forget, I cannot stress this enough. The shuttle leaves at 8:45. The first shuttle leaves at 8:45. Wear your pass. We're going to go up to the castle and party with Magnifico. Also, if you haven't had a chance, please make a donation to help the flood victims in Slovenia. You can go to the Lions Club booth in the exhibitor hallway. And we will see you in Barcelona and Berlin. Thank you all so very much. Have a wonderful week.